Scrimmage 1, I thought there are a lot to teach off of from the film. I was pleased on the whole with the play. I think there's some operational stuff that we got to clean up. That's why you scrimmage, whether that's personnel on and off the field, whether that's getting the call in clearly, getting lined up in the right formation at times. Certainly things that we control that we need to be better at, but again, you scrimmage to expose some of that. I thought the perimeter play on offense really strong. Perimeter runs, specifically Evan Hampton, I thought had a nice day. He's kind of been ascending here the last couple of days. Really excited about what he can bring as a versatile running back. I know we have a really good running back room, but I think when you start to look at the offense, there's a lot of things he can do beside just lining up in the backfield and running the ball as a traditional tailback. So it's good to see him on the perimeter, and I thought Ja'Cory got behind the defense a couple of times. Obviously, had the touchdown with connected with Blaze. I think had one with Jared too that was out of bounds, but we need to see some vertical separation. It was good to see that, and obviously we'll coach on the other side defensively. But one of the things that made us good a year ago was an operation that got in rhythm and then got explosive, and so he'll be important to that. And, defensively, it felt a little bit like we had the opening 3 and out, and then it felt a little mushy there. Credit the offense, but I did feel like the defense came on towards the middle and end of the scrimmage and played better. So on the whole, we can't have conditional energy, conditional spirit. I felt a little bit like we were chasing the emotions of the play today rather than kind of dictating those emotions. I don't think that's abnormal for a team this time of year. But I expect next week that this group will come out just with a little more juice, and we'll have cleaned up some of the operational things that at times held us back. We had good situational work today, good teaching work. So all in all, solid first scrimmage, and I think we come out of it, Aria, relatively healthy. So maybe some bumps and bruises, but no big issues to this point at least. Quarterback-wise, because I know I can talk about everything I want. We're going to talk about quarterback. I know I stood up here a week and a half ago or so and talked about trying to identify the quarterback after the first scrimmage. I'm not ready to do that, and I want to explain a little bit kind of the process here. I mean, we have not, you have summer access time with these players, and so you start training camp, and we have not. It's been full systems go. So we pressed right into the situational areas of the field, the pressure areas. Defensively, we're multiple coverage, multiple shell, multiple pressure. And so there's been a lot of teaching through this first kind of 10 days. And there hasn't been enough consistent play. I actually thought today was as good a day as we've had at the quarterback position. I thought both Blaze and Jared, again, operated well, made plays, took the available play, made good decisions with the ball. And I thought today in particular was Jared's best day. I think from a consistency standpoint, I thought he operated well. I thought you saw some of his play creativity come out today too. And sometimes that's hard to script into practice, So I think these scrimmages will be important evaluation points. I'm going to take the time through next weekend to get another shot at it and be really deliberate in this week. But, it's going to be those two guys competing. I mean, that's what it is. And I thought Whit Muschamp had a really good day, and Jack down in the red zone made some nice runs. And Whit Muschamp's playing as good a football as he's played. I'm really proud of him. But our attention right now is focused on Jared and Blaze and seeing where separation occurs this week. And, we'll probably evaluate next weekend's film, and I'll sit with Tim and plot a course for the decision. But we have this week 3, we have week 4 heading into bench control scrimmage, and then obviously we'll start also P-prep. So, we have a little time here. We're going to use all the time we need.
We'll get started with Arya, then Joey.
What question could you possibly have? I've answered quarterback's injury. I'm just joking, Arya.
Obviously you said you're not going to name a starting quarterback today, but what did you like that you saw from both Jared and Blaze? How are you evaluating them right now, and what do you think they could both serve to work on?
Two different stories, right? Two different players, two different people. I'm really proud of the camp Blaze has put together. I think even coming from spring, I thought he had a really good summer, and part of his strength is in system awareness and really best positioning the 11 guys on the field. That is a part of his advantage, right? His edge. And he's done that without making mistakes with the ball on the whole, and we have a lot of trust in the offensive line and our running backs that we can run an effective offense. And then like today in that first drive, he goes 3 and out rather than get frustrated back on the field, and that second sequence felt a lot like last year. We got in rhythm offensively, and then we became explosive. That was the touchdown pass to Ja'Cory. So he has demonstrated, system proficiency. Okay, and then with Jared, you have the raw ability and skill, and I think it's clear to everyone. I mean, he from an arm strength standpoint, from a play creation standpoint, and yet, this is baptism by fire. I mean, you're in an SEC training camp, again, getting multiple looks. You got the full playbook, that you're working through, and all the checks, in your hip pocket, and that can slow a player like that down. And so he's been a little inconsistent at times, but he's also been really explosive at times too. So where does this go from here? It's Blaze maintaining his consistency and finding those opportunities to be explosive, and it's seeing Jared slow the game down like he did today, and I thought I was really encouraged by the day he had today. Not just, I'm not talking about just the results of plays here, because they're for both guys, there are good balls that get dropped. There are times where protection busts, and there's nothing he can do about that. But it seemed like he was calm, the game was slow, and it allowed some of his instincts to come into play, and you saw some of the physical tools as a result. And so, that's a little bit of where we are. And again, I think as we have another week here running against each other, I expect this game to slow down for both of them, and their best football to emerge from that. So I'll be excited to see that.
Joey, Trevor, Gentry.
You've made a lot in the past of the game slowing down for Curtis, like you mentioned. Just how would you describe how that process has been through the first 9 or so days of camp? And I guess, do you feel like he's at a point where that could maybe more rapidly speed up the rest of camp, like you kind of mentioned? I
do. I think this is true of any player. This is true of any freshman. Like you're at any position. It just so happens the quarterback is the most challenging. Okay, and I want to be really clear. Part of what is necessary right now is his evolution. So how do we change? We got to go to the hard places. You're going to have bad days. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get beat up, and you're going to have to continue to work through that to learn. The player he was in high school is not the player he needs to be for us to fight for our mission here. Mission's winning, right? So it's this constant personal evolution that then begets the performance on the field that also is evolved as well. And it's really hard, because the things that we've relied on in our past don't necessarily give us the opportunities to be successful in our present, right? It's a big jump. Every freshman faces it. There's a wall. There's a mental, physical, emotional wall that comes up. And what happens typically is you come into a situation, and the first your first few weeks, you don't know what you don't know, and you're really just kind of out there playing like you played in high school, and it feels good, it feels natural. And then all of a sudden the burden of the installation and the burden of the defense, and the multiplicity gets thrown in there, and now you slow down because you're thinking, you're processing, and you can't get to the play speed quite quick enough. And then through that struggle, you emerge evolved, and the game slows down, right? And then you return to your instincts, right? I have such a mastery of what's going on around me that I can actually play within myself and play within my instincts too. And that's true of a corner, that's true of a safety, that's true of an offensive lineman, that's true of a running back. That's, the guy talk about Evan Hampton ascending. Part of this is this sequence, right? Where, we're fast, we slow down, and we reemerge playing within the system, but also playing within our instincts. So this is Jared's challenge, right? And I think you asked how's that looked. I mean, again, it's moments, it's glimpses of brilliant play, and then it's also moments where it feels like the operation comes to a gridlock because we're not processing at the speed we need to process that there. And the greatest challenge for us is not judging him for that right now. You know, we have the luxury of having 2 more weeks here. It's coaching him through it to see where we can get him, to see if he is capable of being the guy that we rely on. And again, I thought today was a positive step. But you know, there's 115 players. There's 11 on the field at a time. All these guys have sacrificed a lot for this, and so ultimately, when we line up against Austin Peay, it's like, you know, who is the guy that best gives us a chance to win in that game? And then, you know, what is the role there for whoever's not on the field to continue to develop and be ready when their number's called too. You know, that's what we're doing. That's a long answer, but hopefully that covers it. Yeah.
Trevor, then Gentry.
Particularly in these types of scrimmages and practices, how do you balance wanting the players to go full speed and high effort, but also maintain that health and wellness are a priority, especially given there's only 1 bye week?
So in scrimmage situations, like we have kind of codes of conduct that are important to us. You know, tackling, like we talk about tackling through the thigh and hip being okay. Like actually, Evan got tackled on the sideline. It was really a physical hit. It went through his thigh. We do not want to tackle at the knee or below. That's good fundamentals, first of all, but when you get into those small joints down there, I think you can be compromised pretty quick. And so that's part of our kind of practice etiquette. Obviously, you know, taking care of the quarterback. In the line of scrimmage, we really allow our guys to play. So you'll see offensive linemen cleaning up edges. You'll see defensive linemen running picks and knocking people down. I mean, I think learning how to play physically in there is something you have to do every day. But if you notice today, some of the situational work, we actually took the tempo down to a thud or a tag off, because in those moments what we're actually practicing is operational. It's not physical, it's mental. So why do that? Just to eliminate hits. You know, look, I at some point you got to play football, but how many times do we need someone knifed down from outside in? How many times do we need a pile up in the line of scrimmage? I think the more we can limit those exposures, even in a scrimmage setting, the better. And so you know, we were out there for, I think, just over 2 hours. It wasn't 2 hours of, you know, live, you know, at all costs football. It was, you know, it was still within the boundaries of what we feel like protects the team, and then also times where I pulled back and made it more mental than physical.
Gentry, last question to Chris.
Try to think of a new way to ask about quarterbacks.
That's good. No, this guy. This is like we're playing a game here.
How has Jared been with the aspects that we don't see? And going back to the spring, talking about a guy who comes in as a freshman trying to lead juniors and seniors in a team that's had a lot of success. How has he been with that aspect of it?
Well, let me ask you something first, Gentry. How am I doing with this? Because you seem a little bit ahead of me here,
This
and
is laziness.
Well, that's what this is too. Look, this, first of all, I mean, it is hard for any of us to imagine what it feels like to be him. Okay, the expectations, the external kind of distractions, you know. And he's not a guy that, I mean, look, you know, some guys in the hallway, you can tell when they're doing well and you can tell where they're struggling, and that's part of my job. It's like, you know, it's parenting, right? You kind of feel when your kids come down, you know, how they slept, right? I think he's really skilled at holding some of that back, and so part of our building of relationship is to learn those moments where he is holding it too tight. and where that pressure is building from within him. I don't think anything outside of him has a lot of impact on him. I think he's been conditioned to understand that there's external, internal, but I do think he puts a lot of pressure on himself. This guy really wants to be a great player, and boy, do I love that. Part of my job is to help him in his process so that he can become that. What an exciting challenge for a coach. So, look, here's a guy who isn't too far removed from a back surgery that he had in high school, that never once has found a way out of a lift, never once has found a way to not show up or be accountable to something. I mean, he is such a solid and consistent team member. He's also someone who could very easily drum up a lot of attention, and now he's been in a movie and he's got these other things, and he is just true to himself and humble and kind and all the things that you would want for a member of your program to be. He understands that there is a learning opportunity here for him, a growth opportunity, and he's not trying to assert himself at areas where he's not quite ready to assert himself. So that is to me being a great teammate and having really, really strong self-awareness. So we could talk for another half hour here about all the positive things that give me such hope for him as we move forward. And here's what I know is true for him. No matter who plays against Austin Peay, there's going to be good plays and bad plays ahead, And so this is a guy that can weather the storm. This is a guy that can continue to grow. And yet, part of our responsibility to him is in those moments where it is getting heavy, where the pressure is building, that we have the relationship to help him decompress. And I think we're getting there. So it's frustrating probably to not, for him. I think if he had his choice, just like all these guys, they probably would want to go live every practice. They probably want to show their ability to evade. I mean, I was coaching Blaze on something in the backed up situation, and I was explaining to him how important his scramble was. Like Blaze, we had a sprint out, he scrambles, he doesn't get the first down, and yet we went from a field position where we'd have tight punt, so you wouldn't have any gunners, and so you're talking about optimal field position for the return possession. We went from that to a field position where we're punting with a normal operation, and that is a huge difference. And that was just because his ability to find the yards. And even though he didn't convert, I wanted him to understand the small win. And I said to him, man, that was great, small win, even though you didn't convert. And he said, no, I converted, coach. He wasn't trying to hear that he didn't. So these guys would love the opportunity to compete full speed. We just, we want to be smart. I'm proud of Jared. And yet, I don't know that training camp has been easy for him. But I think, again, to see a guy go through that first 10 days, take on all the things he's taken on, come out today and play some real quality football, I think that's a real positive sign for where we're headed. And now we got to stay in the moment and give him time to continue to grow. So.
Last question, Chris.
Defensively, feels like you guys have given your quarterbacks a lot of challenging looks that just was some complicated looks. It feels like the windows to throw in aren't always there. How pleased are you with that? And how much do you guys intentionally throw at these guys at this stage of the game?
It wouldn't do either of them any good to have the first time they're seeing that level of multiplicity be against Austin Peay or against Delaware or against NC State or certainly in the SEC schedule. So the more we can kind of force feed that pressure, and I think this is a little bit of a defensive approach too, because offensively, sometimes I think it's, your instincts to want to operate kind of in a clean room. But what we know about the games is it's going to be dirty, and we're going to have to make mistakes and learn from them. So I'm pleased with where we are defensively. I think, again, today it felt a little mushy at times. I want to watch the film. There were specifically, we have to be better on the perimeter. I thought the offense always had, a 4 to 6 yard gain on the perimeter. And so we're not playing behind fence posts. We got to be able to compress the block and stop the momentum of the running back to give pursuit time to rally. Those can easily be negative yardage plays. Credit offense, credit blocking on the perimeter. But then the other place to me today was not necessarily puncture runs inside, but the balls that kind of jump cut and spit out the D gap. So like we're not capturing leverage out there. And so there were just some runaways today that I felt like gave the offense life and gave them rhythm. And so maybe tackle to tackle we played decently, but there's just more for us on the edges. And we're going to need personnel to step up in that conversation too. But we are playing better coverage. We are stickier in coverage. We'll always be multiple. And I like what Steve's done with the pressure designs. I think it's going to create challenges. And so I think we got to continue to, just continue to progress that way. And the quarterbacks benefit from it because, they're not going to see much in games that they haven't already seen in practice, and as you get into a game plan, you start to streamline looks and get really specific about, where the success of play lies. And so I think we'll be equipped for that.